Next up, we have a presentation from Cauldron Energy with the ticker code CXU, an exploration and development company focused on identifying and exploring for minerals critical to a cleaner planet. Cauldron has a diversified portfolio of projects in Australia and has already achieved exploration success with its Yanri uranium project in WA.
Thanks, Jane, and thanks to everyone for joining. And reiterate what a time to be in uranium. My previous experience in nuclear goes back 10, 15 years in the UK, and since then, there's been a lot of bad time in the industry with low prices. But geez, what a time to be. Cauldron, everyone will know, hopefully a lot of people know, we are a turnaround story. We've been around a while, but the new management team has been in around 9 months. And over that 9 months has been a complete refresh of the business. You can see some jazzy new branding here that Jane helped us with. We've also bought another project, strengthened our team, and are pushing forward with our exploration plans. I will quickly just highlight a couple of points here. And in this preso, I've just gone through and taken out a lot of the industry stuff that we've all spent so long talking about. So the key things to note on this page, we've seen a big improvement in the share price, but more importantly, a really huge increase in our volume traded. That's been really, really exciting for us. That is off the back of increased interest in the sector, but also it's because people are understanding that, we've had some time out in the wilderness. We were sort of forgotten. Our price and market cap traded down to a very low level, and they're now understanding actually, well, that's probably not fundamentally right. And the new team is giving it a real good go at sort of turning the market around. The new chairman, Ian Mulholland, one of the few guys who has won Explorer of the Year twice. So Ian has a rich history of finding stuff and developing it. My background, all sorts of different things, but including nuclear and radioactive waste. So I financed and built and approved Australia's first radioactive waste repository. So it's a topic close to my heart, and that is in WA. And I did that while uranium mining was banned in WA, and that's quite interesting. And our exploration manager, Angelo, he also joined us relatively recently. We do have some non-uranium assets. I'm not really going to talk about them today. We're focusing on our Yanri asset that is in WA, and there's the double-edged sword. It's a big paleo channel in situ recovery asset, but it's in WA, and so the value has traded off in line with the WA policy. But there's a lot of momentum around coming to change that policy in WA. Quick plug for the Uranium Conference. We have talked about this. So I sit on the Uranium Forum for the Minerals Council, and so helping convene the conference. I'll be there chairing a session or two with Guy down in Adelaide. So encourage you all to come along. It's going to be good. I have been focusing on getting the story out there around the WA policy and federally. The discussion is unfortunately politicised with Mr. Dutton, but the discussion around the possibility of nuclear in Australia. Now, we don't need Australian reactors to sell Australian uranium, but it probably helps. And so, we're taking a broad approach to be absolutely, front and centre of the discussion. There's a few little examples here of some of the work that we've done and articles that I've authored, and it's very interesting to see that the mainstream of the community now is interested in nuclear and uranium mining. So as part of the Uranium Forum, we have released polling which shows that the majority of people in WA want that policy changed. And what's really interesting is obviously the majority of Liberal voters, but it's a majority of Labor voters as well. And it's 34% of Greens voters and like 80% of Pauline Hanson One Nation voters. But there's a very, very strong support for getting the policy changed in WA. And actually, that shouldn't surprise people because WA is a mining state. And so we're doing a lot of work talking with people. The clearest change point is a change in government. The next election is in March 25. So if the Liberals are in, the policy changes. It's important to note it's a policy, not a legislative change. So you can do it without needing to control the upper house. It's literally the red pen of the mining minister, very quick. But with the developing situation with AUKUS in Australia and federal nuclear subs to be home ported in Perth, there is also an opportunity to bring that uranium state policy in line with AUKUS. So it is not dependent on a change of government. Would be easier. There is a pathway to changing that policy, even through an existing Labor government. So that gets us onto Yanri. Yanri is one of the largest uranium deposits in WA. Technically, it's quite similar to the Honeymoon project in South Australia that Duncan and Boss are doing so well at developing. And for us, it's fantastic to see them do so well because it proves that you can do this stuff safely. And therefore, one of the main arguments that the anti-uranium brigade bring out, well, Boss just kind of disproves it. So we're very keen to see them continue. Our asset is also in situ recovery, lower capex, lower opex, more environmentally friendly, don't move dirt. So not all assets obviously in WA are ISR, ours is one of them. And so that means that once that policy changes, we can kick through and move through to the feasibility study very quickly. We are currently doing a scoping study on our asset. And, one of the hashtag first world problems is, well, what price deck do we put in it? As an ISR asset, you've got lower capex, lower opex, you'll make more money than others. And Boss, I think, pressed the button on FID at about $30, $35 uranium. You're now thinking you put 60, 70 in there. These assets are going to be very profitable. And it's a matter of time. The policy will change in WA. And when it does, we are the most levered to the upside. Whereas, and I know Guy made a bit of a comment about not quoting too many pounds and how cheap you are, but we've got a very large resource base and we're capped at about 20 cents per pound in ground. It's extremely, extremely cheap. And so the leverage to the upside is multiples there. Now, what we're doing, we can't mine uranium in WA. We can still explore. And we have a program that works approved by DMERS at Yanri. We've just done a cap raise, and some of those funds will be going into exploration program with an aim of further increasing our uranium resource. Just quickly, we've done a renounceable rights issue to raise $1.6 million. Renounceable structure, a little bit more paperwork for me, fairest way for shareholders. And I was very, very, very keen to make sure we looked after, to the extent we could, all the shareholders that had come into the company over the last couple of months, because the volume has been extraordinary. And so our rights timetable is ticking over. And has been really, really well received. And that provides us the funds we need to go drill Yanri. And I haven't talked much about it. We are also drilling a nickel asset in the West Yilgarn, chasing chalice-style Julimar mineralisation. We've just returned results of an EM survey on that, and that will actually be our first drill campaign. And then Yanri will come thereafter. The other thing to note, obviously, the scoping study for Yanri is underway, and it shouldn't actually be long. It's very well advanced. Value propositions. Look, we are getting recognised for our new team, a new approach, new asset base. Most of the interest is in uranium. We do have a nickel asset, but 95% of interest is in uranium, and we're working hard to push forward with that drill campaign, and we're also looking for some more uranium land. But I won't go too much into that today. I think that's it, Jane. Short and sweet.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for that, Jono. I'll get you to stop sharing and we'll jump into a couple of questions.
Yeah.
So obviously you talked about the upcoming program of work. Do you want to just elaborate on what that is going to sort of look like?
Yeah, so the program of works was approved by DMOs without actually having to put in drill holes. So we've got a flexibility to drill basically anywhere on the tenement that we want to. We have a very well understood payload channel there, and some, you know, it's not greenfields exploration, right? So it's low risk exploration to increase the resource, and you know, we're hoping to quite meaningfully increase that resource and also maybe hit some grade as well.
Thanks, Jono. And it's almost inevitable that Australia is going to be replacing coal with nuclear power. What do you think that sort of timeline is looking like?
So it's interesting. Look, I have been down in Canberra helping form some of that nuclear policy for the Libs. I think what you'll see, by the way, is there's maybe a pivot where the first parts of as the Libs were forming their strategy and their policy, they talked a lot about SMRs. You will see a pivot which says actually anything that is Gen 4, you know, any existing, you know, good technology, including large footprint nuclear, could play a role in Australia. And that is important because I think there are some areas where big footprint nuclear does make sense and others where SMRs make sense. I mean, I think, you know, on Q&A the other day, you had Mr. Bowen, you know, do a Bowen special and say it's going to cost $387 billion to replace that. I mean, that was absolutely primary school maths that he used, the literally worst capex per megawatt capacity you could ever do, and simply times it 21.3 gigawatts of coal divided by 300 megawatts per SMR and came up with 71, and he did that. Absolute joke, and I'd encourage people to look at some of the commentary being put forward on comparable nuclear costs, because it's difficult to do an apples for apples comparison, but there's a reason it works around the world, and it can work here too.
Finally, so just to reiterate, what should shareholders and investors look forward to for the next 3 to 6
years? Yeah, so our first drill campaign will be in Melrose on our nickel asset, and that'll be kicking off once the crops are finished. It's not a good season actually there for the farmers this year, which means we'll probably be able to get access a little sooner than we would otherwise expect. So that'll be towards the end of this calendar year, and then next calendar year is when we'll be drilling January, and we should have that scoping study out. I'd say the scoping study for January is going to be out before Christmas. Touch wood. Don't hold me to that, but I hope so.
Wonderful. As I mentioned, a copy of recording will be available online in the coming days. As I mentioned, today's recording will be available on YouTube, the attending company's websites, and also on social media in the coming days. Thank you all for your time.